Good day. Today's presentation was generated out of a lecture with some final year students at the undergraduate level at the University of Technology, Jamaica. That particular lecture was delivered looking at facilities management, and it was delivered using distance learning or online technologies. In that conversation, we interrogated how can facilities management be leveraged in the face of COVID-19, where distance learning is a part of the new norm. Or the other question would be, how can we use distance learning technologies to affect facilities management in this current COVID crisis, and certainly post-COVID-19? So the thoughts I've generated since then are reflected in this brief presentation, a presentation I hope to convert into a paper by taking a multidisciplinary approach, which is the philosophy of facilities management. And here is the presentation. So we're looking at the influence of distance learning technologies on the core business model of higher education institutions through facilities management. Distance learning technologies. Distance learning technologies allow for the use of a digital curriculum to be delivered to persons in any location across the globe, either synchronously, that is real-time, or asynchronously after the event, employing learning management systems such as Moodle, Blackboard, and Canvas, video and teleconferencing, such as Zoom, one of the more popular platforms, chats, and live streaming. What's facilities management? Facilities management is typically defined as that profession or that discipline that encompasses multiple disciplines to ensure functionality of the built environment by 1, integrating people, 2, place, 3, process, and technology. Alan Park, in his seminal work, Facilities Management, suggests that facilities management is the restructuring of building plans and contents to enhance the creation of an end product. He suggests that it is the generated benefit to the business or the activity that matters. The end product in this case, he suggests, typically is a tangible manufactured item or a service. In either case, the product benefits in competitiveness and quality. What are the headlines? Well, since the beginning of 2020, these are some of the headlines. And right across the globe, whether you're reading the print media or you're watching the television, you will see the impact of coronavirus. In one particular heading, it was even suggested that this pandemic could be bigger than 9/11. And for the historians among us, in looking back at the early 1900s, we have seen the way the Spanish flu ravaged the world. And given what we've seen with COVID-19, the impact is going to be much larger than it was with the Spanish flu. Now, higher education institutions are not immune and have not been immune to the impact of COVID-19. And it is against this backdrop that we want to present a perspective that interrogates the use of distance learning technologies and how that can be leveraged to gain traction with facilities management. So, the first question, how are higher education institutions coping with service delivery? The apparent answer, most universities worldwide have turned to the use of distance and online learning technologies. Locally, tertiary institutions such as the one that I'm a part of, the University of Technology, Jamaica, have engaged learning management systems and web conferencing interfaces to complete and deliver teaching and learning services to students. Now, how are these higher education institutions rethinking their approach to facilities management? During this current COVID-19 pandemic, where the impact is being felt, and certainly, how are these institutions rethinking their approach post-COVID as it relates to their core business model? What are your thoughts? Here are a few of mine. So, the first thought relates to the activities and the functions of facilities management. The second, in responding to user needs. And the third, as a business function. Now, as activities and functions in facilities management would go, these activities include planning, design engineering, health and safety, real estate management, clearly operations maintenance, and of course, administrative services. These now would include managing the functional aspects of the building and of course, managing the performance of the building as a business asset. Park went on to say that managing property and its importance becomes clear once we all realize that property is a finite resource. And let me pause for that to sink in. Property is a finite resource. So he's essentially suggesting that the driving force behind facilities management as a multidisciplinary approach within organizations is simply one of economics. Now, he suggests that the cost of providing buildings and running them as a place of work in any industry is an overhead. In other words, buildings therefore have to be better planned and be sensibly utilized so that there is a willingness to reorganize and reduce capital costs and running costs. In some places, they will call that re-engineering. Clearly, if the cost of overheads are controlled, then what it translates into is an investment in the use and the conservation of building stock. And therefore, success is only going to come from an applied use of economics and a strong pragmatic approach to how we occupy space. Thought 2, in responding to user needs. So, property, therefore, as a finite resource, has to be used to repay the capital cost of its creation on an investment basis. Buildings, therefore, have a value cycle whereby they are developed to satisfy not just the current demand, but the perceived future demands. If that is how we then see property, then buildings are going to grow in investment value and they're going to be driven by demand. The application of facilities management suggests, therefore, that the use of buildings and space has to be studied. We therefore have to adjust and then, of course, match occupation to fit those current demands. Why would we do that? To slow the value decline. So activities such as refurbishment, alteration, and change of use are going to assist us in slowing the value decline and therefore prolonging the projected life of plant as a business function. Trends in facilities management shows that there's a tendency to do less with the internal resources of the organization. And as such, the greater number of tasks are typically outsourced and or projectized. A greater understanding strategically of an organization and its core business will therefore help higher education institutions to cater to their own facilities management requirements and therefore enhance the core business, that of education. Now, physical space requires sanitation, cleaning, outfitting with administrative equipment. It relies on energy and other engineering services to function. And by engineering services, we're talking about communication and telephony, waste disposal, water supply. So, in that vein, I am suggesting that there needs to be a rethink. A rethink. The core business of HEIs are that of teaching and learning. A cursory view of what has been happening during COVID suggests that the revenue inflows are likely to fall because student numbers are likely to decline. Why is that so? Simply because there is the expectation that there's going to be a recession of economic performance. And if that is the case, then that is suggesting that HEIs need to rethink the way we manage existing plant and equipment. In other words, there has to be a willingness to reorganize the core business so that one, we reduce capital, and two, we manage the recurring expenditure costs. We also need to restructure space in the form of lectures, smart classrooms, computer laboratories, discipline-specific laboratories, the use of multimedia and xerographic centers, recreational facilities, are going to be part and parcel of space that is required to drive the core business of HEIs. Also to be considered are asset management and tracking, life cycle costing methodologies as it relates to health, systems engineering, software, safety and security, along with maintenance management. Review. Yes, there needs to be a review. An integrated philosophy that uses distance learning technologies post-COVID-19 could free up square meters of existing space. And the freeing up of existing space will allow faculties as core revenue generating centers to provide more physical spaces. One, to expand current teaching and learning provisions, and two, the support services. What this will do is allow for targeted and judicious redesign of space to maximize on energy usage and management. And it becomes a deliberate strategy for driving the investment value of the HEI. And of course, it will also help with the administrative support services that are required for teaching and learning. So thoughts to realize our journal paper going forward. Well, further to the points elucidated, we will have to consider best practice application of facilities management of HEIs globally. We will also need to do an analysis of the cost per square foot revenue and expenditure for engineering services, energy management, asset management, and maintenance management, along with space management. Then, because we've learned to appreciate that facilities management is simply one of economics and how we manage land and property, then life cycle costing methodologies have to be looked at to see how they impact not just the return on investment value, but the other components related to economics. Another point for the development of a proper journal paper coming out of these thoughts and expressions is the development of simulations or models that will look at how distance learning intervention, as only one variable, since there are others, proposes a possible ratio of existing learning space to support space. In other words, the current usage of space for the core business of an HEI in education may currently be using 50% of its existing space. By freeing up space, how much of that can now be placed into the core business so that that now provides a return on investment, not just in the short term, but in the long term. And of course, there needs to be a cross-disciplinary benefit from the real-world expertise of facilities management that adequately demonstrates the philosophy of facilities management. Ladies and gentlemen, this has taken us to the end of this presentation, and I hope that by sharing these thoughts, I would have stimulated, at least from where I am to you, ideas on how we can use distance learning technologies, online technologies, and leverage that in facilities management so that we can ably assist the core business of HEIs. Thank you.